Hello everyone, it's Wednesday. Hopefully this will upload. There were some pretty serious storms coming through my neighborhood last night. It gave me like a perfect little 3.5 hour window to do Twitch. So we did Riven and then I started Abduction, which is pretty fun. Which is, getting back into the stuff I'm going to talk about today. There were so many comments that I decided to split the feedback process into two parts. So this is going to be the feedback for Mondays. And then Fridays is going to be feedback for Tuesdays on the rant I did about, women on Twitch and getting harassed and all that stuff. Because otherwise I would have to give something short shrift or the video would be ridiculously long. And I'm trying to avoid both. Of course, Tuesday's video, even though I didn't put, I guess TwitchCon was enough, or the thumbnail was enough, but it got demonetized, so you know what I'm gonna do. Patreon, you should become a member. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Oh, hi, Midna. Midna's behind me. How are you, Midna? Don't call attention to you? Pay no attention to the cat behind the monitor? Okay, Midna. Yeah, Monday's video sparked a very interesting conversation, and that's what I was kind of intending to do with it. A lot of very well thought out comments, a lot of back and forth in the comments, a few people calling me stupid, which comes with the territory. But it was interesting because you guys know I tend to be more interested in why somebody has an opinion as opposed to what their opinion is. And it's for reasons like this topic that I think that way. Because it was interesting because the people who are like, no, AAA is still good, they named a lot, primarily Sony first party exclusives like God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn and Last of Us. And those are AAA budget games that break the mold of AAA games because they're Sony first party and designed to sell systems more than anything. As well as make money. But let's face it, they're designed to keep people on the PlayStation ecosystem, so they will buy that copy of Call of Duty or Ghost Recon on the PlayStation instead of the Xbox. There's an overarching marketing thought to it, which I wonder what's going to happen because there's been a very quiet shakeup in PlayStation management that I was just reading about earlier yesterday. It's very odd. There was like this one tweet and Sony's not commenting about a sudden change in senior management, second one in like 2 years. And I wonder if it has something to do with some of the censorship policies. It's very strange for there to be a change in executive right before a new console comes out. They usually launch the console and then make the change, but I'm very curious to see what happens because the head of Sony Worldwide is basically out and we're not quite sure why. So we'll see. But Sony's whole deal, hello Delilah, was to create those great single player experiences that would drive people towards the console. That's what caused them to sort of shoot out of the gate. Why did I lose my focus? Caused it to shoot out of the gate ahead of Microsoft, among other reasons, this console cycle. And so, they sort of rebuilt during the PS3 era, though, they remained eventually competitive with Xbox. And then they just trounced them in the PS4, Xbox One cycle. And they're very well positioned to do that again because they have those exclusives, but that involves an investment that doesn't see an immediate return. And so that's interesting because that model is not the cash cow suck a ton of money out of individual users that the AAA has become. No loot boxes, none of that. It's very much it's a complete game in the box. God of War didn't even have any DLC planned. Like that's the game. We made the game. We're gonna go off and we're gonna make another game probably because it did well enough. But I mean, Last of Us, their DLC was standalone. I didn't even remember there was multiplayer in Last of Us because I didn't touch it. Somebody was adamant there was multiplayer in the Last of Us. So so I guess sort of that was sort of an appendix, like a hanger-on from the old way of Sony doing things, because there was a time where multiplayer had to be in everything when it didn't make sense. But yeah, I mean, Horizon Zero Dawn was another one, really big game, but complete story. And those exceptions almost underline my point that it is possible to make really good AAA games that gamers will like, but not on the current AAA formula that's been accepted of loot boxes and DLC and, heavy emphasis on multiplayer and getting people to spend a lot of time in sort of competitive environments instead of exploratory or like completionist, like narrative driven environments. And the interesting thing about that is if you actually do want to attract more women to gaming, you need the, men like the competition and the destruction. Yes. Women like the completion and the, the ability to finish a story. What's interesting is I know a lot of gamers also want a complete story. They don't necessarily need the competitive leaderboards or anything like that. They want a complete experience, which is interesting. I'd love to see gendered breakdowns of gamers, people who identify as gamers versus or people that play a lot of video games compared to the general gaming population. I wonder if there'd be sort of a fusion that men and women have more similar tastes the more games we play, and men, women, and everybody else, versus the general population that tends to have more of a gendered skew. That would be my prediction based on all the other data I've seen, because of that performative gamer gaze that I sort of identified in Lady Bits. That would be my guess. I'd be really interested to see if that checks out. That there's just sort of more of a merge towards, I find a lot of longtime gamers don't feel, unless you're like an esports player, and that's a totally different thing at that point. People bring up esports, no, it shows the AAA games are super popular. And I said to them that an esports competition has as much to do with the consumer gaming experience as the NFL has with somebody's backyard touch football game. They're just not the same animal at all. And I really do think that certain games suffered from trying to pivot to appeal to esports. Games like the Halo franchise. Remember when that was just this crazy dominant cultural phenomenon, and then they cut couch co-op? That's when I stopped buying Halo games. We still bought Gears of War. That's what sparked the video on Monday, because it had couch co-op. And, I probably would have passed on that game myself. My husband really likes the games. He was very excited. They got our money at full price because there was couch co-op. And I actually, thinking about it retroactively, I realized I should reward the game franchise for putting that feature in. I think that couch co-op is a very pro-gamer focus, because I think there's something very important in sitting in the same room with someone, showing someone tips and tricks and like how to play the game. There are some design elements in Gears of War 5 that drive me crazy in terms of varied skill level and making the player 2 player do things that are just too hard for somebody who tends to play. The player 2 character tends to be the less experienced player because player 1 is the one that knows how to push all the buttons to get into the game. So making player 2 do things that are hard and timed, while player 1 dies over and over and over again and can't do anything about it, that goes against, my personal philosophy of game design, because it's making the person feel bad about being the less skilled player instead of feeling like they're just less skilled and that's okay and everybody has to learn. And there's some design nuance I would have liked to see in Gears of War 5 that lacked. I think that's partially just because, this wasn't a good cycle for the Xbox One, and so I think they're hoping that they can, pick up some slack on. I mean, there are games for Windows service game now, and so they're trying to get people to sample. They're a value add for the subscription service. That's so very much people will play this game when the next console comes out, because I'm assuming that's all going to be forward compatible, backward compatible. I guess backward compatible, yeah. Because it's downloadable, right? It's virtual games. But I thought that was interesting that some people who felt very attached to the AAA experience were it was those first party games that maybe one a year comes out. Maybe, again, the last AAA game I really liked was Spider-Man. First party, console exclusive. There you go. Sony still knows how to make good AAA games on the American side. On the Japanese side, it was interesting. That was another kind of subsection of the comments of people who were more familiar with Japanese. They called it Japanese AAA. I'm not sure that that's what it is. The Japanese market makes games for significantly smaller budgets so they can make their money back with fewer sales. And that's why you get this cool, more targeted experience that says something. And again, that's going into, the economies of scale, the required sales of something like a Xenosaga or Xenoblade or tip of my tongue, like a Sakura or something like that, are so much smaller than your standard AAA. And someone insisted that Sekiro was a AAA game because it was published by Activision. It's very much not a AAA game. It's not. There are flaws with it that certainly put it of AAA contention. And like I said, I like that. I like to see designers play with medium and see what happens, even if it doesn't entirely work. I finished Riven on Twitch last night and then started playing Abduction, and I think that's probably going to be a similar experience with that game, and I think I'm going to like it. It's an interesting update to the Myst format, so I'm going to continue it on Thursday if you'd like to continue to watch that. And yes, Boss Fight Writers, I know I haven't gotten to you in a while. It's been crazy times. And part of it is because I've been following Corey and Lori Cole's new Kickstarter game called Summer Days. And it's really ironic that I ended up talking about this stuff in the week that this launched, because it's a similar thing. I'll give them a plug because I've got it here and I've been watching it. I'm quite invested in this. You'll see I backed it. Like, you're a backer. You see, that's 35 American. Woo! A whole bunch of money just came in. What just happened? Okay. They're about a third of the way to their goal after like 6 hours. You'll see the timestamp on the video. But this is a game. It's the one I helped work the booth on at PAX. Not only are they good people, but they're trying to do something different with adventure games. They're almost taking more of a Japanese adventure game take on it and trying to merge narrative and puzzles. It was interesting to hear Lori Cole talk about what she's trying to do. I'm working on getting an interview with her, so hopefully that will be coming to a podcast fairly soonish. Get that up during the campaign, but I just wanted to talk about that because I backed it and because it kind of dovetailed nicely into this. Again, it's not going to be a game for everyone. It's whimsical and light and not grimdark. And games haven't been as bad with the lack of color as they were during like the 360 era where everybody used the Unreal Engine and everything was like browns and greens. But the Sammy Sammy has just taken on a different coat of paint. And the last bit I want to kind of touch on with the comments is how different people kind of described the Sammy Sammy. Because it's yes, you can point to structural things that are duplicated from game to game. There are tangible details that you can point to describe the Sammy Sammy. But overall, it's just a feel. Like all of these games are paced in very similar ways, and they all function in basically very similar ways. And the minute you're in that kind of AAA designation, you have to have giant maps and like hub and spoke quests and like all these requirements so that you can pack 60 some odd hours of content into a game where you really only have about 20 hours of story. That is the formula. So you just create all these side quests that makes it very easy to dump in, DLC or added content into the game without having to create a ton of new art assets. It's almost like the idea of, as one person put it, how do we stand out from the crowd is, it used to be, as one person pointed out, Doom clones that became first-person shooters. They were so dominant for a while. Now it's these open-world action games that might have a shooting component, might be more melee combat, but it's still the things that make them the same are outweigh the things that make them different. And yes, I fully admit that, as some commenters said, it just, players mature, and it is probably what my taste changing more than the quality of games. And I can still enjoy a good AAA game, Spider-Man. And the multi-platform one I enjoyed before was Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because I liked but even then I felt like it was, the Assassin's Creed experience was diluted by the RPG elements. I totally get why they did it. And if they can clean it up, it would be great, because it leaves that hole that BioWare left behind when it wrecked on the Mass Effect franchise and then decided to make Anthem a game no one wanted or needed. They stepped outside what they were good at and believed their own myths. But one commenter, Martin, I believe the name is Martjin, asked a question of, is it possible that the software just can't keep up with the hardware anymore? There's basically, to paraphrase what he said, is there's only so much visual stimulus that you can pack into a game. So at this point, it's not better graphics, it's more graphics. And I think that we have sort of hit a point where I did say a few years ago, if you go back on my channel, people wondered what I said was going to have to happen, that instead of the technologies just improving, the costs were going to have to come down. And that's definitely what's happened with computer hardware. Is, the 2000 series NVIDIA cards and the new AMD GPUs, they are improvements, but they're not huge improvements based on like the 1000 series or okay, the Ryzen stuff is a huge improvement over the last generation of AMD, but on the NVIDIA side, not NVIDIA, Intel's the CPU, NVIDIA's the GPU, right? If you got I'm still running a 1060, I really don't see the need to upgrade that much. I will eventually, but I'm not going to pay $1,200 for a video card. And they're ridiculously expensive in Canada. So while the 2000 series is awesome, those are for people who were still like tootling around on a 970, and it makes sense to make the jump. RAM has come down in price a lot. The costs are coming down. And what that means is that while PC gaming may be kind of hitting a much needed plateau, what's going to go into consoles can all of a sudden get much better because the components are cheaper. And, ray tracing's this big gimmick right now. Most people, we're at a point where, as the commenter said, most people don't really see the visual differences. And some of these innovations are so uncanny valley realistic that people are starting to get like motion sick and stuff like that. So yeah, we have sort of we've hit the threshold, we've hit the plateau on box art selling a game, and game companies, the Switch I keep pointing to, nowhere near the graphics capability of the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One. They managed to make these utterly charming looking games that look good on the Switch. And that is what, and then sell them for cheaper because they don't cost as much to make because you don't need top-notch graphics. And it's working for them, even though they can't figure out what the performance issues with the Zelda reissue are. I'm waiting a bit to see if they could figure that out, because I did get some performance stuff on Breath of the Wild, and I love the game anyway, but it was kind of annoying in places. I'm trying to see if they can figure out what's wrong with it. If it's just borked, I'll probably play it anyway because it just looks so cute. And that's the thing. Like, I'm hitting that mode. It's not that I'm less of an asshole. You guys have seen my Twitch stuff. I'm a huge asshole. I just am a mature enough asshole to not want grimdark all the time. I'm good with cute. I'm good with different. I don't need to be like, yo, bro, all the time. I'm past that. And I think that's another thing gamers have in common. We're not trying to prove something with the games we like. And this is something I think that people kind of misunderstand about games like Cuphead and games like Sekiro. We do not play extremely hard games to show off. It doesn't feel that way. It's punishing. We enjoy those experiences from time to time. Don't get me wrong. I like my city builders too. People recommended Cities XL for me, and I've been playing the snot out of that game while I ride my exercise bike because it doesn't involve intense concentration. But, I like a very hard game from time to time because I like to test myself. And I know I'm probably not going to finish these games. I will run out of time, but I will get so far. And I think it's important, same way I feel about puzzle games. It's just important to test myself every so often, because it is a good skill. It is good to sort of test your patience and learn to deal with frustration and learn to kind of calm yourself that way. It's not so I can go look at how good a gamer I am, because you guys know I don't take that approach with things. I think that's a really misunderstood part of being a gamer. The kind of community that games like Sakura build around them, because everybody gets their ass kicked and everybody's kind of helping each other. It isn't the fighting game, you suck, or definitely not the shooting game thing with that I never you can tell by my face, like just bad memories. It wasn't like that. It was, we all got our asses kicked. Welcome! It's a totally different thing. You get past this sort of threshold. And people told me this when I was first starting on YouTube, and people were being really nasty to me. And people said, like, look, people just beat on you because it's like a hazing. It's like an initiation. Once you prove yourself, it does get different. And it very much did. And this goes to some of the comments I got in response to me saying it's okay that AAA games aren't for me. A couple people took exception to that because they're like, no, it's a diluting of the experience. And I get that urge. I get that kind of gut reaction of, no, these games aren't gamey enough for us anymore. I say it's okay because there are so many games out there now. It is like really, really impossible to play them all, and not even close. My stack of shame is ridiculous. I've still got Metro in the freaking wrapper here. I gotta play this. I got this on my birthday, and I haven't played it because I got Spider-Man around the same time. But I haven't even taken it out of the plastic. I'll play it one day when I get time. I wonder if I can play it on the bike. If I can play it on the bike, I'll probably spend more time with it. But I've been playing little indie games, and I've been playing these interesting recommendations, and the list of games like Hollow Knight, Unavowed, these are all games that have been recommended for me to play on my Twitch channel, and they're frankly more interesting spectator experiences for me because I crack a lot of jokes and generally act silly. And it's harder to do that without seeming like the wrong kind of asshole with a AAA game like Metro. So I am fine drifting away from AAA games because there's so much, and I agree, parts of the indie space are just getting so making a point that it's pointless. But then I discovered these neat little games like, Elsinore, like Hero U, the demo I played of Summer Days. And if you guys want to play the Summer Days demo, it's on the Kickstarter page. I'll put in a link, free. You can check it out. It's very, very, very cursory. It just gives you sort of the basics. I think playing Hero U is probably a better introduction to sort of what the social mechanics are like. It's a very brief demo. But give it a try. These things interest me now. I like to try new things. I'm going to eventually try that pigeon game, whatever it's called, because just so many people who I didn't expect liked it. And that's the other thing when you get into a core gaming community. And yes, as some people clarified, I do not mean gamer, hardcore gamer, and we only play hard games. No, it is a person who their primary source of entertainment is gaming. They are aficionados. They are enthusiasts like myself. Why am I saying they as if I'm not one? We are enthusiasts about video games. And so something like, Return of Obra Dinn that isn't well, it is hard if you have accessibility challenges with the game. I don't want to understate that. But you know, I didn't find it that difficult. It was neat. It was just a neat experience from start to finish. But yeah, it was cool. It was stylized. It was different. It was interesting, and nice. Um, Nice evolution from, I believe it was the guy who made Papers, Please, which I appreciated as a game, but didn't enjoy. You're not really supposed to enjoy that game. It's supposed to induce a feeling of yuck. Um, but we have these conversations. I mean, if you join us on Twitch, we have really, really in-depth discussions about game design and music too. There's this one commenter who's really, really, really trained in music and has very interesting and specific opinions about that. And that's the sort of thing. We don't battle about different views. We share different views. And that's the element of core gaming community that not even the games press sees because they're not a part of it. They're not part of that core. They haven't gone through the induction. They haven't gone through the hazing and got to the other side. And the reason that that's there, rightly or wrongly, is because there's a whole trust thing among those of us that have these conversations where we know that if someone is passionate about someone, they're not coming at you. They're just passionate about it. And you don't have to agree with them. You can say, here's my point of view, and it works very well. It's, I was really glad to sort of have that on Twitch because it gives me, this is selfish, but it gives me the opportunity to have and observe these conversations that I was really craving before this and didn't really know it. So that's really cool. And that's gaming to me. And I'll leave it there. I don't think this will get demonetized. I never know anymore. But you know what's going to happen because Patreon is another good source of these conversations. Patreon. You should become a member. Patreon. Okay, thanks for watching. Feedback Friday is going to be about Tuesday's video and the rant on women on Twitch. Thanks for watching.